So then go back to John 4:23 and watch the context. Watch it unfold then. But the hour is coming, and now is. This is interesting. It's both coming and now is. He doesn't say it's coming. Nope, scratch that. It now is. Let's don't read it that way. The hour is coming and now is. It is both now here and on its way. In other words, it's both now here but yet to see its full fulfillment. What's the now? I think it's Jesus. It's coming, by the way, it's now. I'm sitting in front of you, but it's coming. What is coming? When true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, because the Father is seeking such to worship Him. What in the world does He mean? True worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. Well, here's a couple of thoughts. Number one, true worship is to see God as Father. What did the text say? The hour is coming and now is when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Guys, that's path breaking. Nobody in Israel is worshiping the Father. They're worshiping God. God doesn't say to them in the book of Leviticus, bring sacrifices of praise so that you can praise the Father. No. You're approaching a just and august, holy God. And you better walk softly, because God carries a big stick. And Jesus comes along and goes, you know what true worship looks like? It both is coming and it now is. That true worshipers are going to worship Him as if He's their daddy. And that's big. That's a path-breaking moment. So true worship is to see God as Father. True worship has little to do with some of the other things and a lot to do with seeing God as Father. What else? To worship in spirit and in truth is to dispense of the tangible elements of temple worship. What does Jesus say? True worshipers are going to worship in spirit and in truth. What did He say right before that? Woman, it's not going to be at this mountain, and it's not going to be in Jerusalem. What do you mean? It's not going to be on your old temple, and it's not going to be at the current temple. Because true worship, the kind of worship that's spirit and in truth, is to dispense of the tangible elements of all temple worship, and temple worship is all tangible. Real incense, real bells on the robe, real lambs being killed, real blood, real fire, real coals, real meat, real gold, real silver, real brazen laver. They figure something else, but they're literal things. And Jesus says true worship isn't going to happen because you can kill a lamb and ring a bell and smell some incense and hear blood splashing on the ground. And no, that's all you've ever known of worship is the fantastic fire coming out of heaven and animals dying and blood being shed. And He goes, true worship isn't going to happen at a place, because true worship is to get rid of those elements of temple worship, the tangible elements of temple worship. And I want to share this thought. We have no temple worship to compare with, but we do elevate the tangible often. Some of our new tangibles are things like atmosphere, music, emotion, etc. In other words, let's enter into worship, and it's a very tangible thing. And there's a bunch of stuff that's involved with it that if we don't do them, none of you will worship. Because for us, worship has become songs and music and slides and lyrics and syncopation and my style and setting the atmosphere for people to worship. And all we've done is replaced the old temple where you could touch stuff with a new temple where you can still touch stuff and where stuff can touch you. And I don't know that that's true worship as much as true worship is dispensing of all the need for the tangibles so that you see God as your dad. If a song helps you do that, that's true worship, but you can do it without a song. What happened to us that worship became music in the church? At what point in the Gospels does Jesus say to her, true worship's going to be whenever you play the guitar and the keyboard and like you settle down and then you turn the lights off and you really start to think about your week and your God. That's really when you're going to worship. Because you hear people say, like, boy, we had some real worship today in church. You go, really? Tell me about that real worship. Well, it got real quiet, and the lights were down. I just closed my eyes, and it was just playing, and I just could feel, it's always what I feel. I could just feel the love of God for me, and I just made new commitments to God, and I just purged myself before God, and I just poured all of it out before God. And listen, none of what I just described is inherently bad, but I don't know if you should call it worship. Worship is seeing that God is your dad and having a revelation of that and realizing that you didn't need anything tangible to get you there. Otherwise, we've taken a step backwards towards temple worship, where we got to have all the other stuff to call it worship. And worship is something you have when you make love to your spouse, and when you train up your kids right, and when you take responsibility at your job, and you realize you're doing it because you're one of dad's kids. There it is. Because you're dad's kid. And some of this belongs to you. And there's a certain set of rights and responsibilities that go with being dad's kid. And you present yourself in the world as if you know you have rights and you know you have responsibilities. That's true worship. And that's a man or a woman who knows his place in the world. And Jesus is setting her free from this inferiority complex, some of which is birthed in her sinful past, and some of it is birthed in her religious past. She brings both cards to the table, both a sinner and a saint at the same time. Here's what I've got. And Jesus says, I got news for you. What you used to be doesn't matter, and how you think you should get to God doesn't matter. The time is coming, and if you'll look at him, the time now is when true worshipers can call him daddy, and they get to do it in spirit, and they get to do it in truth. It's not got anything to do with where they live, or their background, or their race, or their language, or what they know, or who their parents are, or where they grew up in the world. None of that stuff's going to matter, because they're going to be true worshipers, truly worshiping.